Welcome to RealCast, the weekly roundup of the real asset markets. My name's Richard Betts, and I'm joined by our regular team of Dan Innes, Nicole Dines and Paul Strome. Nicole, what have you been following this week?
Well, this was budget week. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak unveiled his second budget, and there were two major announcements on residential, and then another announcement which has a big impact on commercial real estate. So, starting with the residential, he brought back the 95% mortgages, which, as he said, had virtually disappeared after the big financial crisis for obvious reasons. So, what he announced is that in a measure targeted mainly at young people and first-time buyers, they will be able to buy a first home up to the value of 600,000 with just 5% deposit. And the Treasury will guarantee the remaining 95% mortgage. And all the big five lenders in the UK have already signed up to it, so this will actually happen. Rishi Sunak said that he wanted to turn generation rent into generation buy, and the response was pretty positive. People said it was transformational, a real game changer for the market, and obviously it could have longer term consequences, such as for the construction industry. We talked many times on RealCast about affordable housing, so that could be a spur to build more affordable homes. So all in all, a sort of positive for the market. The second measure on residential was the well-expected extension of the stamp duty holiday to the end of June, and then it sort of tapers out until the end of September. This has an immediate impact because the measure, which was introduced last July, it really spurred the market and led to a huge surge in transactions. In January alone, they were up 25%. A lot of people have criticized it as being putting fuel on the fire of a housing market that's already in danger of bubble territory. So that people have different opinions about whether it's a positive or a negative. You know, as I said, the jury's out. And another on the more commercial real estate front, the Chancellor announced the creation of 8 freeports in different regions of the UK. They have, tax breaks, they have cheaper customs, and crucially, they have much simplified and quicker planning laws. And the expectation is this will lead to obviously increased investments and will really boost the logistics sector. And also the Chancellor announced the super deduction tax. And this is obviously supposed to spur innovation such as automation, and that should also be positive for logistics and industrial investment. On the whole, I think a very positive budget for real estate.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that budget plays out. And of course, the jury is out slightly on free ports, but I think some of those planning aspects may become important given the amount of development that we've been seeing coming through at the moment. Dan, what have you been following?
Well, I've been looking at all the different sectors which are actually in growth or certainly planning for some growth. Invesco, they've said that they're going to restart fundraising for its open-ended dedicated hotel fund, which is valued at $1.7 billion. They've been spotting sort of distressed opportunities in the European market. They'll be looking for those towards the end of the year. They already also entered a partnership prior to that with Westmont Hospitality Group, and they had a 13 asset portfolio in key cities in Germany, Amsterdam and the Netherlands, with 24 hotels in 6 European countries in total. Other companies like Blackstone in the same sector, they said they were bullish about the recovery of the hotel sector and were ready to make more investments. And LaSalle Investment Management, they said the opportunity in the hotel sector for its fund, for its Strategies 4 fund, they'd already raised 435 million euros in its first close back in September, and it's now nearing a second close. After the logistics sector, which we've been following for quite some time, the leisure scene and hotel markets, I think this could be one to watch closely. Let's not forget there were some standout pieces in recent news, mainly in the Times, such as the planned New York listing for private members club Soho House. Despite the pandemic hitting their finances pretty hard, they've held on to over 90% of their members. They did abandon a float back in 2018, but it's expected to make a formal filing in the next month. They were valued at $2 billion last June, but I mean, look at what things like major hotels and private members clubs have done for placemaking in assets across Europe. A great example would be what Soho House has done for the White City estate managed by Stanhope, that was obviously acquired last October by Cadillac Fairview. Separately, on the fund side is Ardent, and they have $1.3 billion under management in the US in cities like Atlanta, New York. But they now have a UK team, and that's led by by Richard Benson and Andrew Hilston, who until quite recently, they were working together at Battersea Power Station. And they've launched a new UK business with a $230 million strategic acquisition fund called Ardent Strategic Fund 1, as well as a $300 million debt fund, $300 million. And that's going to be called the Ardent Companies UK. So watch out for them. And then lastly is the new Amazon grocery store that's opened up in Ealing in West London. And it's the first of its kind outside of the US. It's on British Land's estate out in Ealing. And it's the first just walk out grocery store in the UK. It already has 20 of these kind of stores in the US. But certainly this kind of contactless, just walk out concept is a real milestone for the grocery sector.
The interesting part of it, in a way, is also Amazon potentially launching 30 stores in the UK. And then obviously the suggestion would be that that would roll out across continental Europe. Also interesting around the hotel side, I did an interview with Rodrigo Cortez of Azora. And of course, Azora raised 680 million in August last year for their hotel fund. So interesting to see that momentum beginning to build, certainly on the fundraising side. Paul, what have you been watching?
Well, a few more clear signs that real estate's looking beyond COVID, really. Although Barclays warned last week that it's too early to invest in offices in Greater Paris and told of declining NAVs as office valuations soften, and also referred to as severe enough to be memorable 8% decline in La Défense. And Savills pointed out that in February, the monthly total of investment transactions in Germany at about 2.6 billion was the lowest monthly total of commercial and residential property deals since July 2013. But we've seen a spate of development announcements, on the other hand, that indicates a certain degree of optimism in various markets in Europe. Some of them have inevitably been logistics, obviously no surprise, with announcements recently from Clarion Partners in Spain. May and Company are building to suit Amazon in Nuremberg, and VGP is building in Bucharest in Romania. But in other sectors, Patrizia has bought the historic Postbahnhof building in Berlin, where it's planning to create a business district with a primarily office-based scheme. Catella Real Estate has bought 8,000 square metre pre-let office scheme in Luxembourg. And DWS has said it is to forward fund Vardy Partners' One Park Central office development in Barcelona's 22 At district. These are not developers panicking about whether people are going to return to work when the lockdowns finish. In London, Curlew Capital has now got planning consent for a purpose-built student accommodations scheme in Stratford, east of the city. That's a 60 million project. And the schemes in other sectors, which you might have been led to believe have a more uncertain future, taking off too. Qatari Diar announced that London's former US embassy in Mayfair is to be developed as a 5-star Chancery Rosewood hotel that will have retail on the ground floor. And in the retail sector in Paris, property company Mark, formerly Mayor Bergman, has opened its redevelopment of the former hotel Pershing Hall, which is located on 49 Rue Pierre Charon in Paris's so-called Golden Triangle, close to the Champs-Élysées. Mark has spent 20 million refurbishing the scheme and has let 1,500 square metres in the mixed-use building to New York headquartered urban fashion brand Kith. Kith has taken space on the lower 3 floors of the building on a 10-year lease. Mark's CEO, Marcus Mayer, said that welcoming Kith to Pershing Hall is a timely reminder that city centre retail still has a future. He said that the luxury market has demonstrated a special resilience, and locations underpinned by solid fundamentals, high footfall and strong transport connectivity will perform well as we enter the recovery period.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I mean, especially Paris, where there's definitely a view that that golden triangle in terms of retail is still going to be very resilient. Thanks very much for joining us. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Paul. And look forward to seeing you next week for our regular roundup of the real asset markets. Thank you.